Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wrestle Watch podcast, your only podcast for discussing free agency in the world of professional wrestling. I am Ryan here.
And I am Doug, also here on a
It,
lovely, what is it, Monday?
it can be Monday. Yeah, it is Monday.
You
Yes.
know, it's during the summer, I just lose track of days, to be honest.
Yeah, today is Monday. Usually we do our podcast on either Saturdays or Sundays. It's a little bit delayed this week because I am out on the road working. I am in a town that I didn't know. I mean, I've seen it on a map before, but I don't know much about it other than it's called it's a small town in Quebec right now. And yeah, so it's been hard for me to get enough reception to get this to go. So thank you for everybody for your patience, and
I've never,
hopefully this episode works out good for you.
I've never been to Quebec. I've been to
Hmm.
Toronto several times.
Hmm.
Is would you say the primary language spoken around you is French or English?
It's 1000% French.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
I was curious.
Um, even in like I was in Ottawa last night, and it was like 30% French in Ottawa.
Interesting.
Um,
I always just wondered if that was how delineated that is. Okay.
yeah,
So I guess we should probably jump into this here, just because obviously it has been a little delayed, and we don't want to be too far behind with a
yeah,
lot of news because it's been a busy week.
yeah. It does.
A
Yeah,
lot of interesting things have come up, so I think we need to go into that. So the first thing I think we'll do is just kind of go over briefly the tracker as it stands now. Are we still going to upload the video for this one? I know this is a weird one for us this week.
no, there won't be
Okay.
a
All right.
proper video
So,
for this
we're
episode.
not going to waste time going over what the tracker is now because it's going to be changed and we'll talk about what we're looking at later. So, let's just jump right into the news. And I think the biggest news obviously this week is going to be uh the formerly our truth and the newly named Ron Killings going by his actual name going forward. A lot of news with him. So, especially from the Money in the Bank show, do you want to kind of give us a little recap there?
Yeah, so last week it was announced by R-Truth on social media that he would be having his contract lapse with WWE. It wasn't a release, it was just that they were not going to re-sign him. And then there was an outpouring of support for him, not just from other talent who also seemed to be blindsided by all of this. The fans were very perplexed by it. This is also in the milieu of a lot of people seeming to be a little bit fed up with WWE of recent, with the commercialization, the ultra commercialization, the hyper capitalism of it recently. Um, they hijacked the Raw, as they say, which was the first time I think since maybe 2019 that the crowds at WWE have done something like that.
It's been
Where
a while.
they've yeah, I would say like what was that, the Hell in a Cell 2019, where there were AEW chants
Yeah.
after the main event, and people booing the main event and things like that. I feel like this was like the most of that kind of thing since then, with people chanting about R-Truth throughout the show on Raw this past Monday. Um, During the week, the reports that we're seeing now are that during the week, Killings was getting offers from various promotions reaching out to him, including TNA and GCW, about booking him for appearances. Uh, he seemed to get some overtures from WWE after, everybody was calling them out for how terrible of a decision this was, especially because last week they had used him on a pay-per-view main event. Or it wasn't the main event for
It
that
was
show, but
the
it was like the
Saturday night
most
main event.
noteworthy. Yeah, it was the most noteworthy match on that card. Was the R-Truth versus John Cena match. Um, so they yeah, he was getting reached out to by WWE of, hey, like let's try to work something out. Um, the original that they wanted to offer him was like a really reduced contract rate. Essentially it was a Legends deal what they wanted to offer him, and he didn't want to do that. So he just didn't return to any of the calls that people were sending him from WWE. Then Nick Khan got involved with it. And that's when Ron picked back up the phone. They negotiated something. There are reports that it is a short-term deal. Nobody has said specifically what short-term means. There's also been some rumoring that the deal might be a lower tier contract, essentially. So he would possibly just be working like at the end of an angle for him. Um, it's kind of confusing right now what the reports are, but the main thing is that he was planned to be a free agent as of last week, and WWE has negotiated a new contract with him of some degree of some sort. Um, After his appearance at Money in the Bank, where he comes in to try to save the day with Cody and Jey Uso, um, the press conference afterwards, Mr. Paul Levesque acted like it was part of the show. I believe was his terming. Was that it was part of the show, which made it sound like he was trying to say that releasing R-Truth was kayfabe, which it wasn't. And that's also made people pretty angry because this came at the same time that other people's releases or contract lapsing was announced or by talent. And recently there was another wave of releases. So I feel like this is gonna now get into like the opinion section of this topic. I think that that was a terrible idea by WWE to try to act like it was kayfabe. I think that you need to like let the fans have a win once or twice rather than like I get what they're trying to do, I guess, is like, be like, we do what we do, let the fans just watch. That's their ethos right now. Especially Triple H hates it when fans hijack his storylines. But I think it's far worse to act like you released somebody as part of a storyline when you are actively releasing people in real life.
And not only that, I think it's also you have to question the idea that if it was storyline, why is he going on the press conference and telling everyone it's a storyline?
Yeah, yeah,
So a lot of it doesn't make sense, and it's very clear that they just you know they don't want to admit that they made a mistake, and
yeah,
it is once. And I think there is a lot of people talking about it being interesting that Nick Khan was the one who stepped in and perhaps stepped over, uh, Hunter's decisions on this, Mr. Levesque. Um, I don't know enough about that to go into that, but I do think it is interesting that Nick Khan was the one who made this decision.
yeah.
But the one thing I do want to talk about on this is I think R-Truth, Ron Killings did a really fantastic job of leveraging himself and playing everyone exactly the way he wanted to get what he wanted out of this because he ends up with a short-term deal where he's going to be going by a name that he owns going forward. So when he leaves eventually, he'll be able to go by a name that he is referred to on WWE television. That's Ron Killings. Um, he's clearly going to get paid more than he would have with a Legends deal. Otherwise, he would have taken the Legends deal. And he's probably going to get some, you know, final story or final run out of this. So it's like he's done a really, really good job with this. And it's interesting because even though WWE doesn't want to admit that they caved, they did cave. And I think other talents are going to see that, and they know that other talent know that he caved. So we'll see if other people maybe follow this model that Mr.
Mhm.
Killings has kind of put forward because this was a I thought this was a masterful use of leverage on his part, and he should really be commended for this.
I will slightly disagree because he didn't. It's it's all because WWE was trying to not keep him. Like it wasn't like he was like I don't think that he was using free agency in any way as leverage. I think that WWE just got caught with their pants down about thinking that they could get away with one with releasing somebody like this, and everybody revolted. It wasn't like I don't think that. Ron did anything to get the fans to chant for him. I don't think that all of he did anything to get all of the other wrestlers to talk out and speak out about the release. It just is like this is who he has that much power and influence that people will go to bat for him regardless of whether or not he's trying to make it happen or not. He seemed like he wanted to have a serious run, and that's the main thing I would say is that like he got that out of this is that it seems that I mean, at least looking at this 2 days later, allegedly he will get a serious final run in WWE rather than just being a comedy wrestler out of this. But like other than that, like I just think that like this is an example of WWE thinking that they can just be as corporatized as possible with these kinds of moves and think that there's going to be no repercussions for it and it coming back to bite them.
Yes,
Yeah,
but here's the thing. This isn't a situation where like, he got cut and then said, "I'm sorry everybody, I'm not going to get resigned." And then everyone rallied behind him. It's like he was offered a Legends deal. He was offered a deal and he turned it down because it wasn't the deal he wanted.
yeah,
And then so whether or not you're right, I'm not saying that he like masterminded this whole thing, but there was a little bit of uh, acknowledgement and refusal to kind of accept something lower.
hmm
And the fact that he got a new deal and he's does have some things that he wanted, and including the fact that he's going by Ron Killings is really, really notable for me. And I don't think enough people are talking about that
well, yeah,
because
because we don't know yet if it's really going to stick because it's only been just on that Money in the Bank show.
it is.
Like we don't know yet.
We don't. But I mean, they call him Ron Killings on there. We see he's changed Ron Killings on all his social media, or at least I guess he never really. He was always Ron Killings on there, I think. But I think that I want to keep an eye on this because I think
Yeah,
that if he is going by that going forward, and he kind of is thinking longer term that hey, I can go at and use this name going
yeah,
forward, and it's a name that I'm going by on WWE television now. I mean, I think that that shows that he, you know, like I said, I'm not saying he masterminded this whole thing, but I think he used the situation to himself very well.
yeah. And I think that this is like a good contrasting point. Is our next topic here is talking about Mariah May,
Yeah.
where she has now debuted in NXT as someone with no name, because that's the way that this goes. It seems is that when you I don't understand what they're doing. Uh, but they just called her the glamorous and she in their videos for this, just like what happened to Ricky Starks. But it's been reported that she has a multi-year deal with WWE. No reports about the contract length or the terms of the contract. Like for example, we have seen in the past with Stephanie Becker and with Jordan Grace that they were offered money that was comparable to main roster and then either elected to do dates in NXT or were assigned to do dates in NXT before premiering on main roster. So that's why Stephanie Becker has had, and Julia also for that matter, have had relatively short stints in NXT. There has been nothing out yet saying that that is going to be the case with Mariah May in NXT though.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible that she is getting an NXT deal. I know that there are some reports that the money that was being bandied about by AEW, I don't know if they did a formal like offer per se, um, was going to be more money than what she's getting from WWE. Um, that's not to say that it is less money than what she was getting paid in AEW previous contract. Just that the new contract offer that AEW wanted to give her would have been more money than she is currently getting paid by WWE. Um, so yeah, what are your thoughts about Mariah May? First off, like the entire saga of Mariah May, I suppose going back to her leaving Stardom. But secondly, also about Mariah May seemingly being NXT, not main roster.
So I'll say this. First of all, I think we've discussed on previous episodes. our thoughts on just Mariah May and how she handled things. And I think we've largely said she, handled herself well, used her leverage well. But I do think now that we have some new information, there's a couple caveats. The first thing I do want to kind of talk about is the lack of a name.
Hmm.
Now, the reason I want to bring this up is because when we saw this happen with the former Ricky Starks, uh, a lot of us thought, well, everything kind of came together very quickly, blah, blah, blah. They didn't get enough time to finalize all that. So that's why they're doing that.
Yeah.
This is now the exact same thing happened. So now
Yes.
this is no longer an isolated incident. This feels purposeful. Um, because I don't believe that they, especially if they had known for a while that she was coming in, which allegedly we did know that. So part of me wonders, is it a thing where, and I've been thinking about this for a couple days, is it a thing where they just didn't want, the trademark filing to get out there and that kind of get ahead of everything? I mean, do they want to just have like this pop and then do the trademarks later? Because that could be a reason why this is going on.
Yeah, I think that the three kind of paths of why this happened like it did, and also like, well, I mean, for that matter, um, recently, when Jeff Cobb came over, they had filed the name JC Mateo long beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So, they when he debuted, they said Jeff Cobb on commentary, and then like a week later, when he had his first match, they called him JC Mateo. Um, and that was kind of what happened with Ricky Starks. Also, well, they didn't say his name on the original broadcast. Uh, they didn't say no, there was nothing about his name until he did his like first like reappearance in NXT. Um, and then like they said what his name was. So it was like he did a surprise appearance on NXT Weekly. There was a pay-per-view on the Saturday. They still didn't say his name. And then the next Tuesday, they finally said what his name would be. Um, so I think that like they're one of a few paths of why this is happening like it is. One is what you were saying of that they were trying to not ruin a surprise, um, which feels like that they've already done that with other people. Like we've seen the filing for Tala Tonga,
Mm-hmm.
which is supposed to be Hikuleo's name if he ever exists again in this plane of reality. We saw the filing for JC Mateo before he debuted. So I think that there are a lot of possible counters to that being what the case is. The second one is that they um, don't know what they're going to call her, and that is something that is really shocking. That if you think that they've known that they're going to get her for so long, then why don't they know what they're going to do with her? Like that calls into question of everything about if they have any plans for her at all, you know? And then third option is just that they didn't know that they were going to have her and that they're saying that they knew, but in fact they didn't know until very recently. In that scenario, the contract from AEW had expired earlier than they anticipated, and in that scenario, then they actually hadn't, as reported with Ricky Starks, Ricky Saints, they hadn't gotten the filings done yet and negotiated a name yet, and that's why it happened. So it's either yeah, they were trying for a surprise, they're incompetent, or it was a surprise to them.
Yeah. I tend to think it's not a surprise to them. This
Mhm.
idea that they wouldn't have known like exactly when her contract is up, especially
Yeah,
when, she had told them allegedly like before the final Tony Storm match that she was leaving. It
yeah.
seems unlikely. So I do think that this maybe is just them trying to keep surprises going forward. And maybe
Hmm.
this will be the new thing. It also speaks to uh, how they see AEW talent in the sense that they feel like they don't need to say who these people are because everyone's going to know. And that probably, that definitely speaks a little bit more to AEW and where they see them compared to other promotions because they probably would not have done that they haven't done that in the past. They wouldn't do that for, I'm thinking, early NXT, like when, Prince Devitt came in or when Kana came in or even Even like when Matt Riddle came in, like when they're having them all sit ringside and they have to sit there and give the little name tag and say who these people are. They
Yeah.
don't need to do that anymore for AEW talent because, you know, whether they want to admit it or not, AEW, uh, you know, has a high profile
Hmm.
position and everyone who's in that building knows who those people are.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big key part of it as well.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of her being on NXT, because I know this is the big talking point, and I think I'm kind of, you know, have a different perspective on it. I don't necessarily have that big a deal. I don't think it's that big a deal that she's on NXT, as
Hmm.
long as she's making main roster money. Now, is she making main roster money? I don't know. We don't have any idea of that. I
There's
think
yeah.
the idea
There
is
yeah.
she's. Think the idea is, I mean, I doubt she's on like a lower level NXT entry level deal. I That's ridiculous to think that. I think, um, I just think in this situation, the way things are now, I think if you're making the money, if you're getting paid, it's fine. And I think that she's probably once again, she like all wrestlers think, oh, I'm going to main event WrestleMania one day. I'm betting on myself or blah blah blah, whatever Cody said. And I think that's probably her mindset.
Yeah.
Um, do I
Yeah.
think
You
she's
go
going
ahead.
to do I think that she's going to eventually just break out and be a huge star? I maybe. I mean, I think she's gonna be well. She'll do better. She's better suited for WWE than I think she was for AEW. I think that she's always been a solid talent. I think that she's been a good prospect. I don't know that she's necessarily, um, you know, a top level talent. And I will,
Yeah. That's your hot take. Yeah.
yeah, I don't. Um, and I've said before, like when we look at, I mean, because like we were talking about like moneyballing this, and we're saying like, hey, they lost Mariah at AEW, but they gained Tekla, and I had been saying for months that I think Tekla is a better talent in just about every way uh, compared to Mariah May. The only difference is that Tekla just doesn't have the name recognition or well known at this moment. And we'll see if I'm right on that because I'm very, very high on Tekla and I always have been. Um, but we'll see. Mariah May could get just lost in the shuffle in WWE. That's not impossible either.
I
Similar, yeah.
Yeah. I think that the thing with Mariah May is that for me, I think that she is easily in the top 10 women's talent in ring that WWE has. So I think it is ridiculous that somebody that may that won a world title in a stadium show is being put in NXT with nothing coming out, whether or not there's a plan for her to be like a short stint at NXT. She doesn't even have her name yet. All these others, it feels like they don't know what they're doing with her. Like it already feels like that because that's what happened with Ricky Starks. You know, he just appears in NXT and they don't seem to know what they were doing with him. And he's just in like the slop of the North American title scene and feuding with Ethan Page, which Ethan has done great in NXT, but like it's not like it doesn't shout we know what we're doing with this guy.
I think
And
at
that's
some
my concern for Mariah May.
I think at some point, not now, maybe in a couple months, we may want to have a time where we just sit down and let's do a retrospective on the AEW to NXT pipeline and how it has worked out for different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think that would be
Yeah.
an interesting thing to look back on.
Yeah, I think that with Mariah May, that I think that she would have, and there would be no doubt, I think, about her being a success in WWE if they just put her on the main roster day one.
Mm-hmm.
Like now that you're gonna put her in NXT and we don't know for how long, and it's all those kinds of things, there's a lot more uncertainty about whether or not it'll work out. Like, and for Tekla for that matter, I think there's uncertainty if it's gonna work out also, because Mariah May when she debuted was instantly put into the hottest person on the women's roster storyline, immediately put into that storyline. No, you know, oh wow, she's coming. Oh wow, she's here. Oh, okay, what she's gonna do? Who knows? Kind of a thing. Whereas like Tekla comes in, she surprise beats down Jamie Hayter, and I guess that's the feud that they're doing, but they haven't really talked about what the feud's about or what the story's about or anything like that. It's just like I'm gonna jump you, and then I guess I'm gonna have a match with you. Whereas Mariah came in and it's like we knew what she was doing, like we
Mm-hmm.
knew the story already. So like she was set up for success immediately in AEW. I think that like it will remain to be seen with Tekla. She'll have to do a lot more work, I think, than Mariah had to do. Not that
That's
I don't
fair.
think that she can't do it, but like the position that she's been put in with her debut requires her to do more work than Mariah had to do to get over with the crowd.
And that, yeah, I think that's a fair point.
Yeah.
And I think just going forward, we're gonna see, because here's the thing. When you take a look at some of the talent who have gone straight from AEW to the main roster, it's not a lot, but there's definitely a few. Not counting
Um,
Cody. We'll leave Cody out of this. He's like in his
uh,
own league.
yeah.
But you have,
If you look at it, it's and not just going from AEW, but going from like TNA, Japan, all those kinds of things. The people that did, a lot of them either already were in WWE or are much older.
yeah, you're right. And I think that's probably part of it too. That she is very. A lot of people don't realize Mariah May is very young.
Yeah.
And still very young. But then you take a look at someone like Jade Cargill. She went straight to the main roster, but she obviously didn't have the time and the time to develop. And I think that they knew that, or at least they sent her to the performance center to try to help her develop. And I think they learned really quick that that wasn't going to happen. And her success has been questionable on the main roster. Um, Penta's been doing well, but I also think that's a little early. Need a little more
Mhm.
time to see what happens with him. Ray Phoenix, obviously, we don't have nearly enough time to kind of say on him. And I don't know who else made the jump straight from
Andrade, Rusev, Motor City Machine Guns, if you want to look in
I guess you
farther
can count. I
afield,
guess you can count Motor City Machine
Gorillas
Guns.
of Destiny,
Yeah.
Jeff
But
Cobb.
Gorillas, but I'm saying AEW specifically,
Yeah.
and from that pipeline because they obviously, as we said, they seem to expect everyone to immediately know who these people from AEW are, just the way they've been acting. Um, Andrade obviously is a weird one. Rusev, I think we still need to wait and see. But it's a tricky situation. And I think a lot of these people are just going to end up in the same situations they were. Mariah May, I think, I don't know. I still think she can get lost. I really do. So we'll see what happens with her going forward. But for now, I think obviously we're counting her as a confirmed jump. She's in NXT, so she's gonna be removed from the tracker.
Yeah. So speaking of people that sometimes get lost in the shuffle, and sometimes people that when you debut with, you go far. Chris Jericho. So what are we thinking here? So the backstory here is that his contract with AEW is supposed to be up this year at some point. He's not been appearing for a little bit now. He kind of had like a quasi breakup with the rest of the learning tree, but they're still together. It's kind of like he's disappointed in them, so he's taking some time away from Big Bill and Brian Keith. That's in kayfabe storyline. He's doing dates with his bands right now, and taking some time off from AW TV. I think that it was time for that anyway. It happens in cycles with Chris Jericho, and I think that this was the time for him to take his break anyway. But it's fueled people speculating that maybe he is done with AEW because his contract is going to be up this year. Um, do you think that that is likely that he is going to be done with AEW by the end of this year?
Um, I'll say this. I'm going to frame it this way. First of all, Chris Jericho obviously is a day one AEW guy. He's been there from the beginning. Um, he's someone that at different points in times has been someone that Tony Khan really relied on creatively and would have his ear on a lot of
Hmm.
situations, especially during the CM Punk Elite blow up. Chris Jericho was someone who he was really leaning on. Um, I think that if he wanted to stay in AEW, even if it isn't in an in-ring capacity, I think that Tony Khan would have a contract for him. I don't
Yeah,
see a situation where Tony Khan is going to just say, "Hey, I think we're done. I'm not going to renew you." He's got a job as long as as long as he wants, as long
You
as
don't think that
Jericho
he's going to
wants him.
R-Truth him?
Yeah, no, I don't see that happening. I think we're looking at Jericho he's going to be like Dean Malenko or Bryan Danielson or any one of these backstage people that are going to be, and he's been an employee, like he
Yeah.
hasn't been a contracted person. Like from day one, he's been an employee of the company, and I think he'll continue to be that even if he's not an in ring talent.
Mhm.
Um, Now, in terms of his in ring, and I mean, obviously the talking point has been the Jericho Vortex for quite some time. That once you work with Jericho, you just kind of get lost. And I think a lot of that is just because he has been overexposed in this company for a decent amount of time, and even when uh, he's been cycled down the card, which he very clearly is. He's a lower mid card guy and has been for the better part of a year. I don't think that's helped anyone he's worked with.
Yeah.
It's still that perception that Jericho is needs to go away for a while, and I think he's finally kind of got that. And I think the question is once again is like how long is Jericho really going to continue wrestling as a full time guy, quasi full time guy? I guess he's is right now, or even a part time person because he's in his 50s at this point, and at some point, you know, you have to figure out like when are you going to end it.
Yeah.
And I don't
Yeah.
know that and maybe he's going to be someone who's going to just keep wrestling for a while because even at his age, you know, relative to, you know, other people at his position, he can still go. He can still go
Yeah. Yeah.
relatively. He still had great matches not that long ago.
Yeah.
Um, I think, and so then I think that he has that position. Now, the other question is, would WWE see value in him? There's been a long going, rumor that him and Paul Levesque don't necessarily get along and haven't gotten along for a long time. So there's that aspect, but I don't think that's. I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock in that just because I don't think that matters. Um, WWE is currently at a time where they're not necessarily throwing big money contracts at legends, as we kind of just saw with R-Truth. They would offer him maybe a legends deal, maybe a short-term run. Um, Maybe they'll offer him big money for his final run. Um, I don't know that they're necessarily going to do that with him. It just doesn't feel like they would offer him more than AEW would offer, even at this stage. Um,
Probably not, just because I mean that's also just the nature of the beast. I think with someone of his age.
yeah. So I don't see him jumping, but I think there's a remote possibility that maybe WWE does see like some value in, hey, the final
Yeah.
Jericho run, and they're gonna say, hey, we're gonna pay you this much to kind of end your career with us, and it's an I'll use the correct phrasing. I think it's a remote chance that that happens.
Hmm.
But I do think it's something to consider, especially since he's at this point where he is um, at the the down cycle of his career and his contract is up, and he's also someone who is open about jumping around and leaving the territory when he feels like he's getting stale. And
Yeah.
maybe he also just feels, hey, I'm gonna leave for now because I'm stale. I am stale in this company,
Yeah.
and I need to go somewhere else and freshen up. That is a reasonable thing I could see with Chris Jericho. So for that, I think that he does belong on the tracker at this point, but I think putting him at the lowest possible place with the remote chance of jumping is the correct answer.
Yeah. So you said a lot there, so I'm going to try to respond to at least some
Sure.
of it. Um, I think that with his time in AEW, I still think that there's probably value for him in the company. I think that he's not being used well, because I think that putting him in the lower mid card slot is not the most effective usage of somebody of his prestige. I think that going forward, that the best uses of him would be as a legendary ending of a career kind of a thing, um, where you celebrate the man and you get over people that are trying to get to be upper carders. Because right now, what he's done for the past few years, both the Jericho Appreciation Society and with the Learning Tree, is try to get over people in the mid card.
Hmm.
And that doesn't help anybody. It feels like it makes it feel like he's not as important as he should be. I feel like he hasn't felt important in AEW since like what was that Quake by the Lake match with
Yeah.
John Moxley when he was interim champion. I think that that was the last time when Jericho felt serious and important. Um, and that I feel like there are some parallels there to our truth essentially because like when was the last time that our truth felt serious and important? Like he kind of feels important right now.
He
Get
feels
my there.
He feels like yeah, it feels like that our truth is at least being given importance again at the beginning there, but that they wanted him to just be comedy and not serious, you know?
Mhm.
And so I think that the thing that they need to do with Jericho is to make him both feel serious and important. He can be silly, sure, but you know, like a serious contender or somebody that like when you beat him it actually matters. Um, you look at Tanahashi, similar thing, you know, where it's like Tanahashi was downcycled into the mid card for a while, right? And he was just doing trios kind of work essentially. And now that he's retiring, they've had to upcycle him again so that when somebody beats him, like Takeshita, it actually means something. And so they have to do that with Jericho. And I don't know um if he were to go to WWE, I don't know if that's how they would book him. I think that there's more of a chance in AEW that they would book him like that. But I do see the possibility of him, you know, looking at it as like, maybe I'm done with the territory and maybe it's time for me to do the one last ride. And which two of these companies is going to, you know, tell the best story for that one last ride?
And I do think that there is a concern within AEW that I think the AEW fan base right now is going to be a lot less receptive to an upcycling of Chris Jericho than
Hmm.
the WWE fan base would,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
since they haven't seen him in that company in half a decade.
yeah,
So that's
yeah.
probably the other thing to keep in mind too.
But I feel like that like if you were to use him in a Tanahashi kind of manner or like you know where I feel like the kinds of ways that they did the retirement of Tanahashi or the retirement tour of Muto and things like that, I think that that's probably the right way for Jericho to go out is to do like the one or John Cena kind of too, you know, the one last time in X town, you know, like my
Like
final match in France, you
if
know,
they
kind of a
know he's
thing.
gone, if they
If you know,
know
yeah,
what this is the retirement run, then they're gonna.
yeah, if
You're right. They could approach it differently.
and I think that that's the best way. Like, I think that if he does resign, if he signs anywhere with anybody, that it should be a 3 year deal at most, and that he should do that because I think that like otherwise he has the risk of like not having the final chapter be a bang and having it be a whimper because like that's where it's going right now is towards whimper.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that you're right about remote being the appropriate place to put him. I think that it's appropriate to put him on the tracker. He is notable enough. There is enough possibility that he would leave AEW, but not enough for it to be anything more than just popping him down at the bottom of the tracker.
All right. So I think the next person we need to talk about is someone else who's generated buzz or had buzz
Hmm.
generated for him uh, about his potential contract status, and that's going to be Karrion Kross.
Yeah.
So
Um,
I'll let you go
yeah.
ahead and set this
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. So Karrion Kross, it's been a while now that we've been seeing him doing these quasi shoot talks. I don't know if we can call them fully shoot interviews or worked shoot interviews or things like that. But for example, he did one that was like a during the WrestleMania season where he like just gets angry about how he's not being used and he wants to get used more. And at the same time, he's you know talking about maybe he should you know do Bloodsport more and maybe he should leave or all these kinds of things all the typical work shoot I'm disgruntled kind of stuff. People didn't think much of it because it seems like it just work shoot until it came out that his contract is up this year. So I feel like the question mark here of whether or not to put him on the our free agency tracker is, do you think that WWE is trying to work shoot buzz for him, or do you think that it is Karrion Kross trying to generate buzz for himself and get him a new contract there?
I think it is Karrion Kross kind of pushing a lot of this stuff himself.
Hmm.
Um, I think he's trying to kind of work up certain people in the media to kind of make it feel like he's got this buzz. And I know people, it is, I think people like point out like, oh, his shirt is like on the top 20 of,
Yeah.
but it's like, I don't know what it really mean. What does it really mean to be like number 20 on
Well,
that list?
yeah, but like there seems to be, like, when he is at the shows live, there seems to be a little bit more of a backing from the fans for him than how he is being used on the card right now. So it
Yeah.
does seem that he might have generated that himself, obviously. But like, yeah, the fans seem to be uh intrigued by this and wanting more usage of Karrion Cross.
And I don't think WWE is beneath, and or is this is not beyond WWE to kind of like cycle this in and just kind of like
Hmm.
parlay this into a thing, and where they say, oh, the crowd is spoken. I could see them doing that, and they, frankly, that's a smart thing to do. They should do that if they see an organic
If
thing kind
only
of
they had done
bubble up.
that. If only they had just done that with our truth.
Right. Well,
Like that would have been great if they had just been like, well, the fans spoke and our truth's back, or they could have just acted like it didn't happen, like he wasn't getting released in kayfabe.
yeah.
They could have done that, but they didn't.
Well, it's also similar to the kind of like the Goldberg chance, where
Hmm.
eventually
Yeah.
they've just piped the Goldberg chance in and try to build it out that way. And I think that that's something that the company does. I mean, I think there was a time, the long-standing rumor and discussion was with Dom is that they used to pipe in the booze until they didn't need to pipe in the booze anymore.
Yeah.
And
They have been piping in "This Is Awesome" chants.
yeah, so
I can confirm that.
yeah, the company is, since COVID, they've gotten very comfortable with hitting the booyah button and just putting in their own sound effects, because they did it during COVID and then they just kind of stopped doing it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of lean on this. However, I just don't know, because here's the thing, Karrion Kross, for better or worse, you know what he is. He's been a guy who isn't particularly fantastic in the ring. He's kind of dull. He's kind of boring. Um, and I don't. And they've tried. They've given him so many opportunities, more than most. And at some point, it's just like, well, sure, if they sign him again, what's going to change this time?
Yeah, I think that the thing is that the environment's not right for him. I don't think that he's somebody that would thrive in WWE. I
No.
think that it's just that simple. Like, you look at him doing blood sport matches and you look at it and you're like, yeah, this seems like what he wants to do. This
Mm-hmm.
seems like he's going to connect best with the crowds. And when you look at the online chatter from fans about all this with Karrion Cross, it seems like the kind of uh like resolution that fans seem to be wanting is like, maybe he should just go to Japan and like do that kind of style, because it seems like that's what he wants to do and that he doesn't want to do the sports entertainment thing.
Yeah. But then the reality is he's just not going to. A lot of these promotions that do that, what is he going to go to rings?
Yeah.
Pancrase doesn't exist. I mean, uh, it's
Well,
just
like, he could have a contract with like one of the more major promotions and just do freelance these
yeah.
kinds of
I'm
matches
gonna
too.
go
But
gonna
like,
go work in
yeah,
Gleet. Yeah, I know. I mean, he could. This is
yeah.
true. Um, and maybe he'd get over there a little bit more. I mean, he was somewhat over in AAA.
I
Uh,
yeah, I think that if he went to like New Japan, he would actually get over, I think.
yeah, and like, it's
I, I
just, but
think
it
I
is
think that there's a better chance of it even also than him having getting more over in WWE if he stays in WWE.
yeah, I would agree with that. But I also think it's a situation of, is New Japan even in the position to
Yeah, yeah,
anything, other
yeah,
than just like a per appearance deal. So it's questionable in that. But I think
yeah,
that's would be the most likely option. To me, it's just he's going to, because I don't think AEW is particularly interested in him. There was
Mm-mm.
talk of having him, you know, be in the Big Bill situation when he was brought in initially.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to lose Karrion Kross because he's still kind of protecting himself, and that's fine. I mean, this didn't work out. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a different situation now. Maybe they still want to kick the tires on him. So
Yeah.
I think the committee wanted to put him at remote, and I think that that's a fairly good place to kind of put him on the tier list because he's not on
Yeah.
there right now. And putting him in a remote is fine because I do think he's a notable person. He was heavily pushed for a short period of time, where they tried with him several times,
Yeah.
and then eventually it just didn't work. But I think
Yeah.
that with his contract coming due, he's someone that could pop up somewhere.
Yeah.
I think it's the most likely opportunity, most likely outcome is he either stays with WWE, gets a resign, or he just kind of bounces around and
Freelancy.
does freelancing. So either one, that's not a jump that we would track. So I think it's a
Yeah.
remote chance at this point.
Yeah, I think that like I think the notable aspect to him because like it doesn't seem like there is high odds of him going somewhere else. It is just that like there is this discussion about all this that is popping up throughout um the wrestling landscape. So like for us not to track him, I think would be I think it's more prudent to keep track of him considering all of that. Um, and so let's transition to just doing the quick updates
Mm-hmm.
of things that of folks that we don't have as much to say about this week. So the quick hits is where
Yeah.
we have Beth Phoenix is dropping from unlikely to low confidence and off our tracker. Just doesn't seem like much is happening there anymore. With the possibility, the rumor and the feeling was, oh, maybe she'll do some appearances in AEW, which also, if it's just appearances, is not something that we would track.
Yeah, and I think that's the situation right now is some of these people have just been on here for so long, and it's time to just remove them. And Beth Phoenix is a clear, easy one to take off.
Next up, we have Cedric Alexander dropping from toss up to an unlikely jump.
So I think we talked a little bit about this, but you kind of mentioned your thoughts on Cedric, kind of making hurt syndicate comments on his
Yeah,
social media.
yeah. The concept is that when somebody is independent and they're trying to work themselves into a storyline with a major promotion, it means it's not happening.
Yeah. So the fact that we're not seeing him now, I think that that says a lot. We talked a little bit about him in the past in regards to, obviously he's married to Big Swole. He had some, he did some replying in those tweets where Tony and Swole were
Yeah,
kind of going back and forth. I don't know if I tend to think that that's water under the bridge at this point. They probably have smoothed that out, but that could be a factor.
yeah.
Um,
There's been a rumor that TNA might be interested, but like the way that it was phrased and reported, I think it was from PW Insider. It seems more like that Mike Johnson thinks that it would be a good fit rather than him thinking that it's good, like reporting that it's happening.
and it's a weird
Um,
situation with TNA now essentially being the feeder promotion to their their developmental for their developmental. It's like it's just TNA is just in a weird situation, a weird spot right now. I know you have to see kind of
well,
how it shakes
well,
out.
we'll see if they still have shows after Slammiversary.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
because they haven't booked
no,
the TV tapings yet.
they haven't booked anything after
Yeah,
Slammiversary. Yeah.
but you have like Mike Santana, obviously, who they're now talking about maybe bringing in. So once again, it's
Yeah.
looking like TNA is just developmental's developmental.
Um, we have Nixon Newell dropping from remote to low confidence as well and coming off her tracker. Not really much to report here. She's trying to she's doing some like kind of videos and putting them out, trying to generate buzz for herself. But it doesn't seem like that any major promotions are looking to sign her right now.
Yeah, listen, I liked her video. I thought it had the right energy. Um, but yeah, and then maybe this is be the start of it for her. But at least this week, I don't think that she needs to be on the tracker. If we start seeing something generate after this week, we could talk again. But I think
Yeah.
taking her off for now is good.
Next is Persephone from CMLL. dropping from unlikely to remote. She was originally put on the tracker back in January around Wrestle Dynasty because WWE seemed to have interest in her. I think that it's still prudent to keep her on the tracker considering the burgeoning AAA acquisition relationship for WWE. If they're trying to bulk up their roster still, which it doesn't look like they've done any moves yet of signing away anybody from CMLL. But given that WWE in the past has had interest in Persephone, I think it's still okay to keep her on the tracker.
Yeah, I would have been fine taking her off, but I think you know, at least dropping her down to the lowest point is totally fine with me. I think that that's a good place for her.
Yeah, I think that until we see WWE try to do any acquisition of talent in Mexico, I think that it's still decent to keep someone on that we know that they're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, we have Samantha Irvin, the lovely in-ring announcer, formerly of WWE, dropping off the tracker as well. Previously remote, now we have low confidence in her signing to a major promotion.
Yeah, there's just been no sign of that. So I think the next thing we'll do, we're going to run through the free agency tracker. There's a couple people on this tracker that some news has come out on that we're probably going to talk about because there will be some adjustments to them next week. But we'll just kind of
Yeah,
we'll touch on it now as we
yeah.
come across them. So right now in the certain category, we have Hikuleo, who should, I believe he's at 1 year at this point or
It's one
approaching
year.
1 year.
It's 1 year since he has had a match.
Yes. And but I
Yeah.
think the rumor was that he signed like didn't he sign like in July? Isn't that the rumor?
He signed a year ago, around about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he might
Um,
he might be under his first year in WWE and without making an appearance whatsoever. So this is
Congrats to him.
yes, and he's not benched.
Likely we have Ninja Mac and Zazaya. Not much to update with either of those.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're probable we have some kind of we have a few updates here. So we have B Priestley, Joe Hendry, Rio, Alex Windsor, and Dakota Kai. Um, Once again, Dakota Kai, I think we're waiting because we've heard for a while that people are interested. Alex Windsor at the Eve show in in the UK made the
Yeah.
announcement that she is all elite.
Yeah, so she had an IWGP women's match against Shuri, and she lost the match. But after the match, she announced that it would be possibly her last one of her last independent bookings because she is all elite. Shuri also posted congratulating her on signing to AEW essentially. This was something that we'd already been talking about, and I think that she was way too low on the tracker, even at probable, because her partner Will Ospreay already said that it was happening.
Yeah, or at
He
least
said that
alluded to it.
They were just waiting on the visa situation. So like, I don't know why we had her so low. Um, I
Yeah,
think
it's
that
still
like I think
probable.
she should have been likely, I think, because like I get like the hesitancy about visas with the US right now, but like if the partner of the person is saying, yeah, she's essentially signed, we should have her above probable.
Yeah. So
Um,
either way, I think we'll be moving her to at least certain next week and
certain or removed,
or
yeah, one of
remove.
the
Yeah.
two.
I
Yeah.
think it'll just depend how we're feeling on it.
Yeah.
Um, so then going into the toss up category,
Mm-hmm.
we have Danhausen, Michael Oku, Gigi Dolan, and Shayna Baszler. Um, the only one that I think we saw anything new with was Gigi Dolan, where she released a video of her, burning her merch or burning
Yeah.
her ring gear.
So I believe that next week we'll have to update her name on the tracker to have her new I'm out of prison name.
Yes.
The next tier that we have here is the possible tier. We have Alexander Hammerstone, Mio Yamashita, and Ace Austin. No updates on any of them either.
I mean, Hammerstone's back in MLW.
He's been back in LLW for
Yeah,
a while. I've wanted to vote on him and move him down for a while
but we
or
don't
move
know
him
that
off.
he's. I don't know that he's signed. He's just been doing.
MLW says he signed,
Yeah.
but
So
he doesn't. He says that he's not.
I know this is a weird one with him. So we'll see. Then we have for the unlikely category, Gabe Kidd, Leon Slater, Soraya, Shinsuke Nakamura, Sari, Bailey, Deanna Perrazzo, Masha Slamovich, and Cedric Alexander. I feel that we don't need. I don't have anything to say on any of those. Those all seem appropriate and unlikely.
I just wanted to mention that Suri had a fun match in Stardom yesterday.
I will
That's all I
watch
wanted to mention.
when he.
And then down in the remote tier, we have Utami Hayashishita, Sami Zayn, Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, Matt Cardona, AJ Styles, Athena, Bishop Dyer, Chris Jericho, Karrion Kross, and Persephone.
One thing I just want to mention before we wrap it up, and because I think he probably was in the. I think he was in the remote or unlikely category before. But did we see the comments from Sheamus?
I don't think we have
So he
talked
was.
about this.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it. Did you see the comments though?
I have no idea what you're talking about now.
So he was just commenting about how like, hey, I'm healthy, I'm ready, and I want to get going. And so it just seemed like he's uh, a little bit I don't want to say upset, but he was just like, hey, I want to get going here. So maybe he's feeling that his situation in WWE currently could be a little bit better.
Hmm.
Um, he has not wrestled since well, it's been about almost a month. So maybe that he feels that he's down and out. I mean, I don't know. So, but it's not injured, that's for sure. So I guess he was just kind of making that known.
Mm-hmm.
So something to keep in mind.
Yeah. This has been this week's episode of the Wrestle Watch podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. If you're not following us on social media or on Substack, please do so. And I don't think that I have anything else to say this week, Doug.
I don't
Do
think
you?
so either. So I
Okay.
will we'll see you all next week.
All right. Thank you all for tuning in and see you next week.